to week 16 of the weekly rushes, a rushed rush through the weekly rushes, and I'm back on board with a cup of lovely coffee, double espresso. What's yours? What's your preferred coffee? Right, so there we go. So first up this week is a new movie starring Saoirse Ronan and Paul Mescal. Saoirse Ronan and Paul Mescal, probably two of our favourite Irish actors. Paul Mescal from obviously from Normal People, recently with a very small part in The Lost Daughter. Saoirse Ronan, star of Little Women, Lady Bird, countless films, Brooklyn, you name it, she's been in hundreds of them, always very good. But what makes this sort of stand out a bit for the two actors, because you wouldn't expect to see them in something like this, is the fact that it's a sci-fi film and it's called Foe, as in V5, Foe, thumb, I smell the blood of an Englishman, Foe. And the synopsis of this sounds intriguing. Set in the near future, where corporate power is run ragged across the globe, causing environmental hell and horror everywhere. Foe tells the story of a couple, young married couple, who are living on an isolated farm. But one night, a knock on the door from a stranger changes everything, and Paul Mescal's character is randomly selected to travel to a large experimental space station orbiting Earth. Why? We don't know. How? We haven't got a clue. How far in the future is this set? Not too sure. But this is one, and there's another one in the news that we're going to talk about, where this is one of a few kind of sci-fis that are kind of social commentary sci-fis. Got a lot of kind of off-Earth stuff happening at the moment, whether it be asteroids, whether it be space stations. It's a big thing at the moment, sort of space or near space, not outer space, but like close proximity space. So I think that'll be an intriguing film. I'm feeling if you've got actors like Saoirse Ronan and Paul Mescal in there, it's going to be a little bit more nuanced, perhaps a little bit more like not experimental, but a little bit more about the human relationships rather than it is about, you know, special effects and stuff like that. The next project, I'm not a massive fan of Rosamund Pike. I know some are, but I mean, she's never really floated my boat. To be honest with you, I haven't seen too much of her in it. She's starring in a new film, which sounds really intriguing. It's produced by Pablo Larraín, the guy who directed Spencer, the guy who directed Jackie, about Jackie Onassis. He's producing this. But this film, what drew me to this film, if not necessarily Rosamund Pike, is the fact that it's called Rich Flu. So in these COVID times, it's an intriguing kind of play on the idea of a virus. What then made me even more interested is that it's directed by the Spanish director Galder Castelo Urrutia. And the reason that's interesting, you won't know who the hell he is that he directed a film on Netflix that landed during lockdown called The Platform, which I thought was a really intriguing sci-fi / horror film about social status, the haves, the have-nots, and how that's manifested in an elevator taking food, or how much food people who are higher up the kind of social strata would leave food for those lower down, and how those lower down would do anything to survive. This kind of film has a similar sort of concept on that sort of elevator up and down the sort of wealth bracket. The director says, Rich Flu is an immense physical saga full of twists, obstacles and surprises, but above all, it's a complex and provocative emotional journey to the depths of the human soul and the pinnacles of our glorious self-indulgence. Could be a description of The Platform. If you haven't seen it, please go and check it out. And Rich Flu basically focuses on this strange killer disease type virus thing that starts to take out the richest and most influential people on the planet. It takes out billionaires, then it takes out multimillionaires, and it takes out millionaires, and it moves its way down the pecking order until it starts to sort of run the risk of going for ordinary everyday folk. I think that sounds really intriguing. I think it sounds really rich, the Rich Flu, literally. So for me, that's the first project where I've heard Rosamund Pike's attached to it, and I'm like, yeah, absolutely, I want to step towards that, I want to watch that. DAkota Johnson, oh God, she's kind of really, I'm sort of growing to really like DAkota Johnson. She was in that movie about peanut butter something or other, Peanut Butter Man, the one with Shia LaBeouf about the Down syndrome wrestler. She had a small part in that. I thought she was lovely in that. Obviously we know her from 50 Shades of Grey, but she also had a small part in The Lost Daughter recently. Excellent. She's starring in the first female lead offshoot. This is the first female lead offshoot for Sony Pictures in a superhero film. It's one of the, obviously Sony owns Spider-Man, part of the Marvel franchise. They've had huge success with No Way Home. I think it's something like the 6th or 5th highest grossing film of all time, certainly in America. And this is a new film based on Madam Web, who's a character that first appeared in Spider-Man number 210. Let me give you a description of what the character is. Usually depicted as an elderly blind woman suffering from a chronic neuromuscular disease that makes makes it difficult to move and breathe, and as such she's connected to a life support system much in the way a spider is to a spider web. So in casting Dakota Johnson, you wonder whether she's actually going to be as sort of bedridden or immobile as the original character. But this is written by the guys who've written Morbius, which is the new film starring Jared Leto that's coming out. That's also part of the Sony. So Sony are carving out this really interesting sort of, it's like a Venn diagram. You've got Spider-Man, you've got Marvel, and then in the middle you've got these kind of Spider-Man-y kind of characters that obviously Sony own the rights to. And so this is the first female lead in that capacity. Obviously other films within this unique kind of Venn diagram franchise area are things like Venom, Morbius, obviously, and now this will be the next one, which is Madam Web. Now this is intriguing. I've wondered what's happened to Bill Nighy for quite some time. You know, Love Actually, he's one of our sort of leading sort of lovey thespian types, but always loved and often plays sort of faded rock stars, and you know, and is always sort of willing to take the piss out of himself and what have you. Well, they're making a dramatized TV series, Showtime are, of the David Bowie film, The Man Who Fell to Earth. And Bill Nighy is taking on the part of Thomas Newton, the character that Bowie played in the original film. This is, as I say, this is a series. He's starring alongside Chiwetel Ejiofor and Naomi Harris, both of whom he's worked with before. Chiwetel he's worked with on Love Actually, Naomi Harris on the Pirates of the Caribbean films. And so this is it's a cult classic, the 1976 film, The Man Who Fell to Earth. Bowie absolutely manifested it. But Bill Nighy is going to be, I don't know if he's necessarily going to be playing David Bowie playing it. I think they're going to sort of basically dramatize the story again, which is based on the Walter Tevis book. So I don't think this is Bill Nighy playing Bowie in the making of, for example, like the recent Godfather drama, The Offer, which is out there. This is a remake of The Man Who Fell to Earth with Bill Nighy in the David Bowie role. But I think that would be quite rich, and I think it's a rich kind of prospect. Controversial singer, rapper, songwriter, XXXTentacion, who sadly obviously died 4 years ago. The reason it was quite a sort of confusing and difficult death to know how to quite deal with was that he was shrouded in all sorts of controversy around his treatment of his girlfriend, partner, ex-girlfriends, what have you. The very strong accusations of some degree of domestic violence, and so in a sense that clouded what was otherwise clearly an astonishing talent in this singer-songwriter rapper. There's a new documentary being made about his astonishing sort of ascent towards becoming one of the most streamed or streaming Spotifying artists in history so quickly. It's called Look at Me. It's being shown at the SXSW Film Festival in March, and of course he was shot dead in a robbery back in June 2018. Maddie was a huge fan of his music. But yeah, on his Instagram account, it says, "It's finally here, a film that takes you through the complicated life of a troubled and controversial genius." There's going to be frank commentary from family, friends, and romantic partners. So I hope this embraces the contradictions. Yes, it's going to be great to sort of champion him as a brilliant artist, a fabulous rapper, and his songs are quite phenomenal. He's almost genre bending. To call him a rapper, it kind of does a disservice to the music that he actually made. But I hope it also embraces the very real dark side to his character and the dark side to many of his relationships. Now, there's no films about the Jonestown Massacre, and then suddenly there's loads of films about the Jonestown Massacre. That's the Jim Jones cult leader who took off a load of followers to create the People's Temple cult. Well, of course, we talked a couple of weeks ago about how Leonardo DiCaprio was swinging around to play the cult leader Jim Jones himself in a new movie. But this is another movie about the Jim Jones Massacre, but through the angle of one of the women who escaped. It stars Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Chloe Grace Moretz. So I think Chloe Grace Moretz is just slowly carving quite a meaningful kind of career and body of work for herself. She's not done anything that's really sort of successfully thrown her into orbit, but I think that could change. This is being directed, interestingly, by Anne Sewitsky, and the reason that's significant, she directed the brilliant series starring Claire Foy called A Very British Scandal. It was one of mine and Naddie's guilty pleasures over this Christmas just past. Chloe Grace Moretz is signed on to play one of the Jonestown survivors, Leighton, because of course what happened was a great big mass suicide happened where something like 900 members of his People's Temple cult killed themselves. I mean, the suggestion is they didn't freely or willingly, all of them killed themselves. A lot of them were kind of forced to or lent on to do this. So yeah, it's the story of Deborah Leighton and how she managed to famously escape the cult. I think this will be quite a good role for Chloe Grace Moretz. It kind of reminds me a little bit of that Martha Macy May film starring Elizabeth Olsen, which was also about a young girl being sort of brought into a cult and whether she could actually get out of that cult. Rebel Wilson, we haven't seen Rebel Wilson for a while. She's posted on her Instagram about a new Netflix film that she's in called Senior Year. There's a shot of her in her car. We don't quite know where she's going. going, where she's driving, or what she's doing. But she plays a woman, and I'll read the synopsis. She plays a woman who suffers a tragic cheerleading accident in high school and then wakes up 20 years later. Rather than live life as an adult, she decides to go back to education and earn the prom queen crown she feels she was denied. So it's kind of like a comedy. It's a knock to the head comedy, go back in time, jobby. And I don't know how I feel about those films. I find them a little bit kind of, it's a bit obvious, but Rebel, you know, she's incredibly popular. There have been lots of photos, lots of discussion in the press about her weight loss and body change and all this kind of stuff. So, you know, I think there'll be a lot of people very excited about seeing Rebel Wilson sink her teeth into another comedic role. I believe she's presenting, there's talk of her presenting, is it the BAFTAs or something like that coming up? But meanwhile, Pitch Perfect fans, which obviously, you know, fired Rebel Wilson into the stratosphere. There's a TV series coming of Pitch Perfect, which will go down an absolute storm. Our girls loved the first one. We loved the first one. I think it got a bit tired by, was there Pitch Perfect 2 and 3? Now, this story is about a new sci-fi film starring, we mentioned this on the Popcorn Junkies Instagram account, do go over there and follow us if you like sort of up-to-the-minute news that's landing during the week. But this stars Benedict Cumberbatch. We all know Benedict Cucumber Patch, don't we? Of course we do. Countless things. My favourite has to be Patrick Melrose. Oh my God, he was just so good. Laura Dern, obviously, from things like Wild at Heart, was most recently seen in Marriage Story. She was also in Big Little Lies. And it also stars Noah Jupe, who's one of our absolute guilty pleasures. He was in Honey Boy, the film about Shia LaBeouf's childhood. He's been in A Quiet Place recently. He's we first came across him in that film Wonder. He's a cracking young actor, really, really good young actor. Well, they're in a new sci-fi, and it's called Morning. And this is set in the near future. It's a society that has a pill that when you take it, it removes the need for sleep, probably trying to maximize our productivity, our ability to just keep carrying on, with the added help of an artificial sun, which means that you haven't got the natural event of nighttime encouraging you to sleep. There's no end to morning daylight, living and work. And yet what this film is about a younger generation coming through this experience deprived of sleep, and they essentially rebel against the system in order to reclaim, quite literally, their dreams, or the capacity to even dream. The director of The True History of the Kelly Gang is directing this, Justin Kurzel. He's a good set of hands. He also did the Macbeth in 2015, which I think gave us Florence Pugh, if I'm right in thinking, and he also did the film Snowtown. I think this sounds really rich. Got fabulously strong acting personnel there, and a really compelling idea there, which is a sci-fi idea, but also baked into that pill idea is a really strong commentary on our sort of ever more corporate civilization or society that we live in. And finally, of course, it's the BAFTA nominations. I mean, it's that time of year, and how could we do the weekly rushes without talking through some of the BAFTA nominations? So best film, you've got Belfast, Don't Look Up, Dune, Licorice Pizza. I'm really pleased about Licorice Pizza, and the biggest, I have to be shamefaced in saying this, is The Power of the Dog, which Nanny Di has been going on about loads. I still haven't seen. I'm going to have to make myself sit down for 2 hours this weekend and watch The Power of the Dog. How can we watch the awards season, Academy Awards, the BAFTAs, and not having seen it? Then there's a long list of films for Outstanding British Film. Belfast is in both. Another couple of notables in there is Outstanding British Film has House of Gucci, don't think it deserves it. Last Night in Soho, don't think it deserves it. And Boiling Point, which is an incredibly virtuoso piece of filmmaking, but I've been intrigued to know what you think if you've seen it. Everybody's talking about Jamie's in there, so, you know, some interesting films in the Outstanding British Film. Leading actress, quite rightly, I think, Lady Gaga's in there for House of Gucci. Alana Haim for Licorice Pizza, a wonderful turn for, you know, singer, songwriter. She has her own band with her sisters. Emilia Jones in Coda, I still haven't seen Coda. Lead actor, some notable ones in there. Mahershala Ali for Swan Song. He gets nominated almost every 2 years, doesn't he? Benedict Cucumber Patch for The Power of the Dog. Leonardo DiCaprio for Don't Look Up. I thought he kind of hammed it a bit in Don't Look Up, if I'm really honest. I think he overbaked that. Stephen Graham for Boiling Point. We just love Stephen Graham. Regardless of what you think of Boiling Point, I just love the fact that he's been nominated. Supporting actress, there's Catriona Balfe, Belfast. I think Nads would like her. Jessie Buckley, though, The Lost Daughter. A fantastic supporting role there alongside Olivia Colman. I think Jessie Buckley, for me, just nabs it. Anne Dowd in Mass. Really traumatic, tragic, but beautifully acted film about two sets of parents who come together, brought together due to a mass shooting. In Best Supporting Actor, we've got Kieran Hines, who played the grandfather in Belfast. These are the standout ones for me. I think he was absolutely remarkable. Woody Norman in Come On, Come On, the Joaquin Phoenix movie. He plays the boy, quite a phenomenal find. But here again, look, Jesse Plemons and Cody Smith-McPhee, both for The Power of the Dog. Gotta watch it, gotta watch it. For Best Director, what's the most notable for me here? Paul Thomas Anderson, Licorice Pizza, Jane Campion, The Power of the Dog, and Julia Ducournau for Titanic. Titane. Now, interesting that Titane doesn't make the best film, but it does make the best director. Me and Annie Dye were really blown away by that film. It's not for everyone. It's traumatic. It seems strange that it doesn't get nominated for Best Picture. So that brings us to Films of the Week. And what have we got? So Films of the Week this week, we've got The Souvenir Part 2. Not the most obvious choice of film topic or subject to have a sequel for. So The Souvenir Part 1 was about a young girl who goes to film school, struggles to make films. She's very privileged, very well off. Tilda Swinton is the mum. Tilda Swinton's daughter in the film is also Tilda Swinton's daughter in real life. This woman who's gone to film school essentially loses her partner through suicide, played by Tom Burke. He's brilliant in it, actually. For me, he was the absolute shining star in the original film. This film lacks him. It has Richard Ayoade in it. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Always kind of a bit kind of Marmite for me. He's either overdoing it or kind of just wrongly doing it, or sometimes he's good in The Crystal Maze. I like him in that. But The Souvenir Part 2 carries on this story. It's still at film school. She's finding her voice. She's trying to be a filmmaker. I'm not going to say anything more about it. We're doing a review and it's going to land this weekend. See what you think of that. It's definitely an art house film, though. Then you've got The Eyes of Tammy Faye, starring Jessica Chastain, which is about the TV evangelist couple, Tammy and Jim Faye. They created the biggest religious TV broadcasting company, if you like, even a theme park, a little bit like Dolly Parton's theme park, but for religiosity. A scandal brings them down, all sorts of improprieties happen, but apparently she was really famous, Tammy Faye, for her eyelashes and things like that. So Jessica Chastain, now I know some people are real fans of hers. I'm hoping this might be the film that kind of really wins me over with her. I always feel like she's holding back something in some of the parts that she performs in. And finally, if you fancy some schlocky sci-fi stupidity, Moonfall by Roland Emmerich. Of course, he gave us Independence Day and all that kind of stuff. This is a film about world annihilation. The moon's been knocked off kilter. It's hurtling towards Earth. My only problem with this, going back to the thing of near space rather than the far outer space, is that if the moon was knocked off kilter, it's so near to us, it would just literally go plop, wouldn't it, and then destroy us. Well, anyway, this film is about avoiding world annihilation. It's been knocked off course, it's hurtling towards Earth, and we're now on a mission to stop it. Apparently, it's crazy, silly. It could be one of those films that gains cult status because it's so bad. And there you have our weekly rush through the weekly rushes. Share your thoughts, tell us what you think, and see you next week.
For more film and family fun, don't forget to click the subscribe button and make sure to click the bell to never miss an update.